Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. This week, I'm gonna be repairing something on my R35 GTR that seems like a lot of people have an issue with, and that is the LEDs on the R switches burning out. I myself am currently dealing with 3 of them. 2 of the lights in the switches have burnt out, and my save mode LED is burnt out. Not that I really use save mode, but I'd like to make sure everything's working. So I'm gonna show you how to fix that in this video today. Now, if you have this issue, you actually have 3 options for repair. The first one being is you can just buy a whole new unit. I was looking on eBay and it seems like they run anywhere from about $350 to $450 just to replace the whole unit. Another option you have if you're a little nervous about soldering is you can actually pull the unit yourself and you can send it out to somebody. There seems like there's a few people on the Facebook pages that'll repair them for anywhere from about $150 to $250. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the soldering and repair yourself, and it's going to run you a whopping 97 cents. That's right, this is actually a very cheap repair to do. In fact, I always think it's funny when shipping costs more than the actual items. So, as I've always said before, learning to work on your car, you can save a lot of money, and this is definitely one of those instances where you'll be able to do that. This is also a great project for a day like today because here in Southern California, it is 107 degrees. It's a little oppressive. So the cool thing is it's gonna take all of maybe about 10-15 minutes to get the unit out of the car, and then I get to spend the rest of the time inside an air-conditioned apartment doing a little soldering. However, 2 things before we get started. 1, if you'd like to see more automotive, particularly GTR content in the future, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And 2, if you'd like to support the channel, I do have the JD Archer shop. If you go to jdarcher.bigcartel.com, you can see a limited selection of t-shirts I've designed that are for sale. And starting this week, there is a brand new design up. That's right, for those of you that have been following my Instagram posts as well as some of my YouTube posts, I've been working to convert Mike's Bayside Blue R32 GTR into kind of more of an animation style avatar. And I actually finished this week and I put it on the background of the rising sun of Japan with the Tokyo skyline. So it is now on a t-shirt, either front or back, depending on what you like. And it's for sale now, so you can go ahead and check that out. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to working on the R35. Before we get started working on the car, the first thing I want to do is run you through everything you're going to need to get this job done. I do this in all my videos where I show you how to work on a car because I never want you to find yourself in a situation where you've taken the car apart and all of a sudden you find you need a part or a tool and the car's apart, so it won't really get you anywhere, so you're calling up all your buddies looking for an emergency ride to either Home Depot or Pep Boys or AutoZone to get whatever it is you need to finish. So the first thing you're going to need is something you probably already have in your house, and that is a spoon. I know you might be thinking a spoon, that's a little weird. Now the spoon's going to be used to get the side trim off from around the stereo and the R switches. I used the same technique when I showed you how to carbon fiber vinyl wrap the center console, so we're going to be using the same technique here. It works just fine, it doesn't mess up anything in the car. However, if that makes you nervous, you're more than welcome to pick up an interior trim removal kit. In fact, I've been meaning to do the same thing. I've just been very, very lazy about it, but that's something you're gonna need to get started. You can go one route or the other. The next thing you're gonna need is basically your just standard tool kit. Nothing trick. To be honest, all you're gonna need is a Phillips head screwdriver to get the unit out of the car. The next thing you're gonna need is something you probably don't have lying around the house unless you've done soldering before, and that's just your standard solder pin. However, a little bit more than that, you're gonna need to make sure you have a very fine tip for your solder pin. So if you just have the standard solder mechanism, you might wanna go and check out, make sure you can find a nice fine tip to work. Now, fortunately for me, Mike has been very gracious to invite me over to do the soldering over at his place because he's got a much more advanced solder system because he used to repair video game consoles, you know, the ones you actually see in arcades. So he really knows what he's doing. He's got a really nice setup, so I'm gonna be using that. You don't need a system that advanced, but if you got access to it, might as well use it. The final thing you're gonna need is, of course, the LEDs themselves, and I ordered these from Lighthouse LED, and I have to warn you, these suckers are tiny, like super, super tiny. Like I could fit these on a dime and still have room left over. So before you go ahead and order up, you're gonna wanna make sure you check which lights are burnt out, make sure you get the right color. This one actually had a page that seemed to have all the right ones for the GTR in the correct colors, so you just need to select what it is that you need. Now, of course, there will be a list in the description down below with everything that'll be used in this video, along with links to where I got it. So if this is a job you want to do with your car, all you have to do is just check that list, make sure you have everything you need. If anything's missing, I'll have a link to it. Just click on the link, it'll take you where you need to go to get that particular item. But with all that out of the way, let's start digging into the car. Here we are in the car, time to get started taking things apart. Just so you know, I do have the car running. Like I said, it's 170 degrees today, and so having AC is really, really nice, but I will turn the car off before I start disconnecting the electrics, obviously. Actually, just out of curiosity, how hot is it out there according to this? 110, yeah. So definitely leaving the car on with some AC. So let's go ahead and start off with what I said, the spoon. So we're just gonna go ahead and it just kind of wiggles right in there, fits real nice, and you just kind of push it out so it doesn't damage anything. Now comes one plastic piece. And son of a bitch. Out comes the second plastic piece. Now, as I said, so as you can see, here are the bolts right here, little Phillips head screws. And we need to loosen that to go ahead and get this whole mechanism out. All right, so like I said, real simple tools, just Phillips head screwdriver. We're gonna go ahead and get this all loosened up. There's no more screws. I'm not seeing any. See, that's why you got to pull it out, is for this tab right here. That's why you have to remove the stereo. Out that comes. Let's go ahead and put that back in there temporarily. So here's the plug right here. So it's ready to come out. So I'm going to go ahead and kill the power to the car so I lose my AC. And we'll be ready to head inside. There we go. And we're free and clear to head inside, start taking this apart, start working on the soldering. So that's got to be a record for getting something out of the car. It's amazing what a 110-degree temperature can inspire you to do. So we got the switches out of the car. We're here inside of the apartment with the nice air conditioning, and we're about to get this thing apart. As you saw, it came out really, really easy. Now to take it apart, it's very, very simple. We got these 3 Phillips heads right here, so we're just going to go ahead and start with taking those out. There's some clips right here on the side that are holding this black plastic piece in, so I want to be careful with those. So there was a little bit of tape here and here holding it on, just so you know when you're taking yours apart. We're now free and clear of the whole housing. Now for the fun part is taking this apart. So when you're taking out the housing, you don't have to worry about it too much. But as you can see right here, there's some clips. Once you get clear of that, it should go completely free and we should be able to see the board underneath. Now, from what I understand, you want to be careful. You don't want to do this upside down because pieces will fall out, like I'm seeing some springs and some various other things. So you want to make sure when you take it apart, you take it apart with the switches facing down. And you want to make note of where things are. So the way I have it set up right now is I'm going to have it set up where the off, the comfort, and the save are facing me in the upside down position. So when I take it apart and flip it face up, they'll be facing away from me. And so also that means that the save is going to be on my right hand side, because that's one of the ones we're going to have to replace. Or maybe coming in with a flathead screwdriver would have been smarter. There we go. That one's loose. Oop. All right, so you got 3 on this side, 2 on the sides, and 3 on the back side. So like I said, just to remind myself, save is going to be when I flip it up at the top on my right-hand side, and of course the 3 whites are in the middle. Back these. So now that we're all clear, 3 in the middle, save is going to be on the top right-hand side. So we just pull the board out like this, and there we go. So the ones that we're going to be dealing with is this little LED right here. That's going to be the save LED. And I believe that these 3 LEDs right here are the white ones. And so that's where we're going to be soldering.
Hey everybody, Mike here. I'm going to be helping JD with getting this taken care of because I happen to have some soldering equipment. But first, we wanted to go through and kind of give you an update on how we're going to go about dealing with this, because this is a delicate board, mostly due to size. Sometimes you have delicate just from parts that are very fragile. This one is just tiny, and that's kind of a pain. But the good thing is we got a lot to work with. So I have a nice little soldering iron here, and it's actually fairly new for me. We do have, let me go ahead and show here, a very fine tip, make sure that comes through, very fine tip iron. You're going to want to definitely have that because, as you can see, let's bring this up closer. I don't know if he has shown you this, the actual solder stuff we're playing with is extremely, get in there, extremely tiny. It's also, in this case, fairly old. Solder, it lasts for a long time. Sometimes it breaks, sometimes it doesn't. As such, we're going to be using a couple different techniques to try to clean this up. Because it's such a small amount, getting it to actually heat up is going to be a little tricky without risking damage to other things. So I do have some fresh solder. If you apply newer solder to older solder, it's kind of like putting a wet erase over a dry erase marker. It really helps it pop out and get rid of it. And we have this as well. This is some, I believe, made out of copper, but this is a soldering wick. You put it onto the solder that we're actually heating up and it'll absorb it out. Helps remove it from what we're working with and gets it out of our way so we can actually get these tiny little LEDs off. Then of course we have our soldering iron itself, which I'll be running probably around 550 degrees. That way I can get on there, pull the solder out real quick, and go to town. Now, when working with LEDs, the very important thing to remember is they are polarized. So which side connects to which is very important. We have the actual replacement LEDs here, and let's get those on camera for us. They are right about here. They are super tiny and out of focus. Come on, focus up. Well, we'll get some good shots of that in here as well. But one thing we will note is there is a very little cutout on one corner that represents, I believe, the positive side. I forget if it's positive or negative, but it represents the side that needs to be on that side. It's very similar if you've ever messed with capacitors. They have a similar concept. So we have to go through and make sure that we put them facing the same direction as the ones we take off, which we've already checked. Personally, I always write little notes, so I have a little diagram as to what I'll be working with. And then we just go through, face them the same way, test it, and hopefully everything works good on this. So yeah, without further ado, let's hop into this. He's gonna have to help me as extra hands as we go through with this because this is a very complicated thing. So first thing we're going to do is pick which one we're going to work on, and we're going to do this one right here, right in the middle. Just get a little bit of solder on here.
Now, as I did say at the beginning, as you can see, he's got a very fine tip. I thought the tip I had on mine was kind of a fine tip. That one's way more fine.
One thing it does help is to turn the soldering iron on and actually turn the soldering iron on, not the other part of the machine. So let's let that heat up real quick. You don't want to let these sit while they're hot, so that's why I didn't already have it on for us here, but give it a minute to heat up. You see how fast it heats up?
Yeah.
These get hot very, very, very fast, and they get very hot. Be very careful messing with these. I have grabbed these by the tip before while they were on. You don't forget that for months. Even after it heals, it's just holding a pencil is terrifying at that point. There we go, we are to temperature, so now we should be able to start. Got some solder on there. I'm gonna grab this, go to the edge we need. Heat it up. Yeah, see if we can get that. There's a lot more than actually meant to put on there, but it doesn't matter, this thing's going away anyhow. Now that allows us to use the soldering wick. And the soldering wick will get very hot, so keep your hands very clear of it while you're working with it. As you can see, my thumb is on it, and that's probably going to bite me here in a second. So I'm going to be very careful with that. And as we start heating up the solder, it's not wanting to behave. There it goes. It'll start pulling all of it into the wick. Pull the wick away. Let's see if we can show. It's hard to see, but I can tell that the solder has mostly broken free. There's a little bit still there, but we can probably work with that. So now, one other thing that's actually very useful to have, very fine tip tweezers, so that whenever we're working with this, we can start trying to pull it off here. So my goal here is to just get it to lift off of that one pad. And then once it lifts off that pad, we can start pulling it off the other pad. There it goes. And back, here we go now. So as you can see, it's now lifted up on that side. Now, of course, the other side needs to be done as well. And again, be sure to remember where your little markings are. One thing to keep in mind, and we did find with this, is between these three, they actually have different facings. So they're not all facing the same direction. So don't look at one and go, cool, they're all that direction. Be sure to check for every individual one. And now, we might not need to re-tin the other side, but let's find out. Can we get lucky? Boom! Came off and shot across the table. So, there we go. As you can see, can't even hold on to it. Super tiny. Now, real quick, while we have this off here, because it's a good chance to show it. These, oh my God. It's not that hot anymore, I'll just hold it. As you can see, there are some very, 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 very tiny, oh yeah, there we go. Very tiny pin connectors there. Those are what we've been soldering to and from. That's how little space we have to work with on these. But we don't care about that anymore. You can go away, go bye-bye. Check the board. Yep, okay. Time to get the second one. We're just gonna take them all out here. There it goes. Good set of second eyes, because these things fire off and then they're gone. Okay, so. Yeah, one more thing worth mentioning. So with these new LEDs, the little cut we're talking about is in one of the corners. So on the ones we're taking off, the one we just took off, it's in the bottom left-hand side. This one, it's actually in the top left-hand side. Top and bottom doesn't matter, it's the left or right side. So you wanna make sure that the cut is on the same connector pair as the one you took off. So this one cuts technically in a different spot, but it's on the same side. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to liquefy the solder, and then while it's wet, I'm going to throw the pin down back on it. That's pretty much the goal of what we're doing here. All right, we're gonna actually have to add just a little more solder. You can let go of that now. So what I'm doing right now is putting a little bit of solder just on the thing. I'm gonna have all this part. And I'm gonna transfer that solder to the pad. Just gives us a little more play to work with. Work to play with? What's the phrase? I don't know. There we go. Now we will. Oh, I think I got it. At least enough to hold it. Once it's held in place, you can kind of fiddle with it. It's getting that initial connection that's a pain. Now I just check. It's kind of a visual inspection to make sure that all the pins are connected. And it looks good. It could be a little cleaner. There we go. There was a guy I watch on YouTube that he likes to say, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It's a good thing to live by. So that gives us that one. Now we got this one right here to do. But that in general is the flow to that. We're gonna just knock all the rest of these out and hopefully have some awesome lights when all this is done.
moment of truth time. I've gotten everything reinstalled, as you can see. It is really simple. It was just basically getting the stereo out of the way, pushing this into place, putting those 2 screws in on either side, and putting the plastic trim back into place. So everything is set up and ready to go. So let's see if I have working LEDs. There they are, all 3 up and working. So just to test it all to make sure everything's working okay. All the R's are online. And they're saved, the one that was burnt out. So I have all LEDs working on my R switch. And there it is. I have now successfully installed brand new LEDs into my R switches. I'm really happy the whole thing's lighting up. It's just like it was when the car first came off the showroom floor. To be honest, I don't know if those LEDs were working when I bought the car 2 years ago and I just didn't notice it till later, but they haven't been working for a while, so I'm really happy to see them working. A couple things as I kind of wrap up. One, I would kind of rate this job a little bit more difficult than the jobs I've done before in the past on this channel. So I heavily recommend that if this is something you're going to want to attempt yourself, make sure you've at least soldered wires together before. If you've soldered wires together before, whether installing like a fuel pump or aftermarket gauges, this should be able to be a job that you'll be able to do as long as you take your time, have a good amount of patience, and don't rush or use brute force on anything. If you've never soldered anything together before, I heavily recommend either bypassing this job, paying someone to do it, or at least pick up like some spare wire and practice soldering it together before you do this. And the reason why you want to do this is it'll kind of give you an idea of how solder reacts as you heat it up and liquefy it. And that way the job will be a little bit less daunting when you actually decide to tackle it. The other thing I want to talk about is, in the video, Mike said that he had his solder iron set at 550. I've got to be honest, I could have sworn it said 590. So if you're going to do this, make sure you have a soldering iron that can at least get up to 600 degrees. Otherwise, you may run into some issues trying to liquefy the solder and getting the old LEDs off the board. However, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go hit that thumbs up button to let me know. It does help the channel out a lot. As I did say at the beginning of the video, if you want to see more automotive, particularly GTR content in the future, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or you feel there's anything I missed in this video, or if you caught something as someone who has experience working with solder that we could have made the job easier or better, go ahead and post in the comment section down below. I will respond to you. I thank you all for watching, and until next time, forget everything else, focus on the finish line.